This is the Cole Memo. I'm your host, Cole Preston. Every episode is released in audio, video, and transcript formats. To find the transcript, audio, or video version of any episode, please refer to the description of the episode that you're listening to now. Within that description, you can find a link which will take you to our website, which will display the transcript for this episode and the platforms where you can find this episode in audio or video formats. If you're unable to locate the episode description on whichever platform you're listening from, I get it. Every platform is different. Simply note the episode number and visit thecolememo.com. From there, you can find the corresponding episode, and then you'll be able to access the audio, video, and transcript version of the episode. You might also find any links that we referenced during the episode so that you might be able to do your own research. That's always encouraged. If you're not listening to this episode of the Cole Memo on Patreon, then you're listening to this episode later than our patrons. To become a patron, go to thecolememo.com/Patreon. Once again, that's thecolememo.com/Patreon. It's a great way to support our show, but one of the best ways to support our show is free. Share it with your friends, subscribe to or follow our show, give it a thumbs up or whatever options you have. Your engagement and support is appreciated. Today is December 19th, 2023, and we're continuing our series on Hash Wednesday. I'm so excited to be joined by Debby Goldsberry. Do you go by Debby or?
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. Perfect. Should have asked that before we went on air. How are you doing this afternoon?
Great. I'm good. I'm assuming you go by Cole. Hi,
Yes.
Cole. I'm
Nice
good.
to
I'm
meet
doing
you.
really well. Very good to meet you as well. Thank you. Whoa, what is that stuff you're drinking? It's blue.
Yeah, so it's Gatorade infused with cannabis.
Okay, best answer ever. Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Yeah, it's actually
It's
pretty strong too.
420 there soon too, like an
Yeah,
18.
it is actually going to be
Yeah,
420
minutes.
soon.
Yeah.
Gonna have to get it sparked up and I guess poured up in this
That's
case.
so funny.
Um, but anyways, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Hash Wednesday. I want to get to Hash Wednesday, but before we get to Hash Wednesday, and I want to ask you what is Hash Wednesday, of course, from your perspective. But before we get to that, um, I think it's important to establish that, you went to the University of Illinois. I think that's
True.
awesome. And
That is.
so how did you find yourself at the University of Illinois? That's what I wanted to start off with.
Well, I grew up in Illinois and I always wanted to go to University of Illinois, so that's what I did.
Gotcha. And what'd you study?
I was there only 2 years. I never graduated. I studied rhetoric and political science. I did my freshman, sophomore years there.
Nice.
Well, and
And
technically I was there my junior year, but was I? Yeah,
were you actually there?
I see,
It's debatable.
yeah. I was there 3 years, but I only got 2 years of actual school credit in during that time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So,
Hey, yesterday was my last day of college, so the 35-year journey. I finished up my classes yesterday. So yeah, just arrived
congrats.
Cal State East Bay out here in California, and yeah, I hit the 4.0. So ever since I went back to college, I had the 4.0. University of Illinois, yeah, not so much, but there we go. So I was there.
You just weren't ready yet. You had other things to accomplish.
Thank you, Cole. That was very sweet of you to say that. Yes. So, and I did leave to start my first cannabis organization. You maybe talked to Josh about it some, but the Cannabis Action Network. So I figured, like, the time has come. Why am I going to take out more loans and go to school longer when I've already know what I want to do and I'm already doing it? So yeah. But, yeah.
Yeah. So before I ask you what is Hash Wednesday, I want you to cue that up, how you would answer that. But before you answer that, I'm just curious. I always like to ask everybody this, like when and how did you first hear about it?
Okay. I was a student. I was there in 85, fall of 85 and 86. I was pretty straight, although believe me, I was all about the quarter beers. Hopefully they don't do that anymore. But yeah, we were all about the quarter beers as 18 and 19-year-olds. But eventually my the RA at the boys dorm over there turned us on to weed. So the second I tried marijuana, I was like, why would I ever want alcohol again? This stuff is like this is the way to go. So I probably knew about Hash Wednesday before I started using cannabis, but as soon as I started using cannabis, that's when I started attending Hash Wednesday. So I'm guessing that was 1986. But the first big pot rally I went to was the Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Festival. If you ever heard of that one, from Madison, Wisconsin.
Hmm.
So we started smoking weed, journeyed to Madison, Wisconsin. That one was big, like 10,000 people or something like that. And then attended our own, festival after that. So yeah.
That's cool. And I'm just curious, do you remember, so you answered when, do you remember how you first heard about Hash Wednesday though? Was
I
it in
mean,
passing? Did you see a
right.
sign?
Everyone knew about Hash Wednesday. It was just everyone already knew. I don't know if you know about this or anybody told you about this, but do you know that we were all searching for the elusive cannabis fields on campus also, that there was this rumor, which actually was true, as it turns out. I found out years later that there was like a DEA licensed marijuana field on campus. And so we already were out like, we've got to find that place, but it had gotten shut down by the DEA like the year before I got there. But yeah, I eventually met the researcher who actually had a DEA license to grow. Can I tell you the story, Cole? This is a side note, but this is what this
Yeah.
guy was. He was a student there, probably a grad student, and so he applied for a grant, or however it is you get a program on campus, and a license to the DEA to grow marijuana, to find molds and mildews that will kill marijuana. That was his selling point to the DEA, right? We're going to kill marijuana with molds and mildews. He was not doing that. He was trying to figure out how to stop the molds and mildews from killing the weed. So he actually had a field of marijuana on campus. He had the license from the DEA and he was growing on campus. But he told me that DEA came by one day and they're like, "Where's the control plants, guys?" They had smoked the control plants. So DEA pulled their license. So we were searching for the elusive field that had been like licensed and then shut down by DEA because the college students had smoked the control plants.
That's crazy. I don't recall hearing about this. Do you
There's a
remember approximately like how long it was open or when it was open? The reason I ask is because I've only ever heard of University of Mississippi growing, you know.
Yeah, this had that same license. It would have been in the early 80s because I think it closed down right before I got there, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah, very
yeah.
cool.
I got there in
Wow.
85, like I said. So yeah, early 80s.
Yeah,
John, I can't
that's
remember that guy's name, John something. Yeah,
yeah, that's crazy.
so funny. Yeah, so we were always we're stoned, trekking around campus looking for this, elusive cannabis field that didn't exist anymore. But yeah, we just always knew about Hash Wednesday, and that was that. So,
And so the question of the hour from your perspective, what was Hash Wednesday?
um, well, at college campuses all across to everywhere, and in some big cities, like in the 70s, all the hippies and students were doing these like smoke-ins. It was part of the anti-war protest. So there were smoke-ins all around the US and at a lot of college campuses, like that Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Fest. There was Ann Arbor, Hash Bash. Washington, D.C. had their 4th of July smoke-in. New York City had their annual marijuana march. And then a few little campuses, a few campuses had smoke-ins too. So we just happened to be one of the campuses that hopped on the smoke-in bandwagon, thanks to these two like stoner guys from the 70s, Bruce, Bethel, and another guy, I forget what the other guy's name is, who just like started Hash Wednesday. So it was like a remnant of this throwback movement from the 70s, just one of the smoke-ins that just kept on going and kept on going. I mean, it took me so many years, I mean, to put together the importance of University of Illinois in the movement to legalize cannabis. But little did we know at that time that one of the reasons why it was so endearing there, and Hash Wednesday had took place, and why it was still going, why everyone loved cannabis over there, is that like things like the guy who founded NORML was a college student there, a national organization for the reform of marijuana laws. The editor of High Times magazine grew up in Champaign-Urbana, and was all around campus. And Chef Ra, the famous ganja chef from High Times, he was there. I mean, how do we know about Hash Wednesday? Because Chef Ra was always roller skating around campus in like tie-dyes and dreadlocks, living the weed lifestyle. And he was a famous High Times author at the time. So I had joined the campus NORML group back then, And I didn't know that all this cannabis stuff, had emanated from Champaign-Urbana. So yeah, Hash Wednesday was just part of an endearing and long-lasting legacy of cannabis on the campus. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'm curious, can you confirm, is this you in this headline here? Let me get this out of the way.
Oh my gosh, let's see. Oh my God. Yeah, that's me, all right.
That's you?
Oh, and look at his baby Josh. Yeah, that's me. That is definitely me. Oh, you got to send me a clip of that.
Yeah, definitely will.
So funny. What's with that haircut? That's the 1980s short haircut growing out. We all had like that, short hair in the 80s. So this is when I was growing my hair out from the 80s.
Yeah. And
So funny.
do you
Oh my
remember this
God.
picture being taken?
What's that?
Do you remember this event? Do you remember?
Drug Forum panel members reject marijuana smokers articles. What is it? No, I don't remember this at all.
So it says a group of University Illinois students who support legalization of marijuana couldn't smoke out much sympathy at a community forum on drug education and prevention. About 10 UI students who belong to the local chapter of Normal, as you mentioned you were a part of, appeared Thursday night at the Champaign City building to argue that marijuana is a quote soft drug that should not be classified with more dangerous hard drugs
Told
like
you
crack
so.
cocaine.
Told you so.
Yep. Yeah, this is awesome. Isn't this cool to see this
That
old?
is so funny.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
hilarious.
definitely get you this.
I
Um,
think I have a picture of me walking into Hash Wednesday, but like the year before when my hair is actually still short. I've still got the 80s cut going. So
yeah. So I guess this was October 13th, 1989. That's when this was printed.
oh, 89, huh? Ooh.
Yeah.
Am I wearing my favorite overalls? I am.
Oh, hey. Yep. Get your overalls on. I didn't even notice that until you said that.
That's funny.
That's cool. So did you say you do remember this?
No.
No?
Um, nope.
Were you
Did
high?
Josh,
I'm just joking. You don't remember it.
did Josh say he remembered it?
But he did say, let me put this back up. He did say it brought back, well, I can't remember if I directly asked him if he remembered the photo itself, but he said he remembers this guy. He says this guy was not a big fan of him, of Josh. He also said, "Wow, I forgot that I had that shirt." So it
Yeah,
said,
this shirt looks so familiar. I think that's from Washington D.C. Rock Against Racism, I think, but maybe not.
yeah, he said the story behind it is he told us the whole story, some protest he did. It says Ron sells crack, and I think it's
Okay.
referring to um maybe it doesn't say Ron. I'm not sure, but it's referring to the Bushes funding the Contras back in the day or something like that. Like that
Right.
whole,
Surely.
you know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about? I'm a
Yeah,
little,
because yes, of course, they were selling cocaine to buy weapons for their underground, supplying weapons. What was to Iran or something like that? I forget exactly, but yeah.
yeah,
I mean, this was the height of the drug war. These were nightmare days for civil liberties, for cannabis users, for people who were using harder drugs. These were absolute nightmare years. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't imagine, like, it's crazy. The reason I started this podcast and like in a little bit, I'll be smoking a joint on this podcast and I do that comfortably is because the progress we've made. I can't imagine like, back in the day, for example, there's this photo that we have. We interviewed a participant of Hash Wednesday. I'll have to find it and show it to you if I can find it. I've got quite a lot of photos here, so I'll have to skim through them. But they've got a picture of him just smoking a bong on the square. And I was like, dude, I wasn't even comfortable to do that until 2020 when we like legalized weed. And even then I was still a little
Oh
worried
no.
about like my job.
Yeah, no. My very first Hash Wednesday I remember attending was 20 no, sorry, 19 God, what year would it have been? 87?
Okay.
1987. There was only probably 100 people, something like that, right in the center of the quad there. But somebody had brought a 30-foot bong, not a small bong, a 30-foot bong, mind you, and a lifeguard chair because you had to sit on the lifeguard chair to be able to smoke the bong. So that's how free 1987 Hash Wednesday was. 30-foot bong. That was impressive.
That's awesome. We have a
That's
similar
cool.
picture where students are standing on other students' shoulders to hit a really large bong.
That's probably the same year. So
Yeah, I'll have to find that photo. But anyways, while I find that, what do you remember about your time at Hash Wednesday?
um
Any notable memories?
okay, I remember, first of all, like the very first time I smoked weed, like I told you, was on campus, and I just thought like the government's lying to us. That's all there is to it. Like the government is lying to us. I couldn't even believe how obvious it was just with one, kind of can't smoke cannabis once, really understand that the government's lying to you. But that's what it was. So for us, just like in the 60s, it was a subversive act to get together in the center of cannabis and or campus and bring a 30-foot bong, smoke cannabis and smoke joints. It was subversive. It felt subversive. It felt like we were trying to send a message to the war on drugs that we know you're lying. And also it was fun as heck. I mean, it really was just a party and a celebration. It didn't have a big political vibe. There was no politics. Nobody was like having booths or passing out flyers or anything. People were just like sharing marijuana. So yeah, it was a smoking, just a pure like let's get together and smoke. So
That's crazy. That's crazy. I just found the photo on my phone. I'm gonna have to send it to myself. It's crazy to think that it was just that casual. Um, you know what I mean? Because even today, and we'll get to this later, I don't mean to skip ahead to today. I kind of want to stay back in the good old days for a little bit and with Hash Wednesday and stuff. But today, I mean, especially since the University of Illinois is now a smoke-free campus, but setting that aside, you don't see any like outdoor events, and cannabis is legal now. So to think that you guys were doing it back then, it's
oh yeah,
like
yeah.
pretty crazy.
Everyone just looked forward to it every year. And we didn't even have any good weed back then. It was all imported, brick weed basically. So, but that's what we had.
Yeah.
My
But
dog, by
gotcha
the
high.
way, dog's back there barking. I hope he's not being annoying.
Oh, it's okay. We've animals are commonplace here. I've got cats, they'll pop up sometimes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
it was a good time. It was so fun. But of course, we'll have to eventually talk about 1988, which you probably heard about from a number of people. But yeah,
yeah, I was actually just about to ask you about 1988 because I've got some uh pictures here of headlines from 1988. Maybe you could springboard us and maybe we'll see if I know what you're talking about.
oh, the 19 between 1987 and 88, the war on drugs really heated up, and the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the federal government really started cracking down. So what we heard from our perspective is that Ronald Reagan had told the campus that if they didn't stop that Hash Wednesday baloney, that they were going to start losing some of their federal funding. So when we showed up, just like innocent, naive cannabis users, just ready to skip into the center of campus and have our festival, just like it'd been going on for a dozen years by then. Um, nope, like that picture showed you. I mean, to us, our buddy Rex got beat up by the police. Like that could even be Rex. They just totally beat him bloody and hauled him off to jail. So for people who are just like cannabis is good, the government's lying to us, we're not doing anything except being nice and having fun, gentle people, to have the police come in and beat students bloody, it was just crazy. It was just unthinkable and shocking. So it is really the moment I became political activist. That's this moment.
And here
They
you
had
can
billy clubs and they were beating people, literally beating students bloody.
wow. Yeah, you can see them going through the crowd and it says down here it says this person was Laura Baltras was placed on a stretcher after being injured in the pushing and shoving that occurred as police made arrests.
It was terrible, terrible. Just such a hypocrisy and just a nightmare. So yeah, the word was it was Ronald Reagan threatening to pull funding, and the campus reacting by sending the police in to beat us bloody. Rex, the police got Rex.
Do you think that's Rex there?
I think that could be Rex, yeah.
Wow. That is just,
A lot of the students went limp when they were getting arrested. So we're using some of the tactics of still the 60s kind of protests.
I see that here where he's kind of
Yeah, going limp.
being dragged.
Yeah. Yep.
That's very interesting. Um,
Or arrest. Oh yeah, I remember it was raining.
yeah. And here you can see this person saying stop Hash Wednesday, enforce the law. Do you remember this person?
No, what a crazy though. But remember, I don't know if they still have those there, but the campus preachers.
Uh-huh.
I think that might have been one of the campus preachers who came to campus and would just yell in the center of campus about anything.
Correct. I think I met this person.
Yeah.
I actually asked them if they'd like to be a part of the series, thinking that, hey, I'll give the opposition some airport because I don't know if you know anything about my show, Debbie, but I've had people on that don't believe cannabis should be legal because I am confident in what I believe in. And so, if
Yeah.
just because somebody disagrees doesn't mean I'm going to I don't know. I'm not going to shy away from that conversation in hopes that I could inform them or educate them of my perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so I gave him that opportunity, and at least I think it's this person. I don't know exactly that it is this person, but it was a person that wrote a letter to the editor saying that they do not believe uh, cannabis use should be permitted and that Hash Wednesday should be stopped. And they were even saying something to the effect of the university needs to enforce the law, which you can see that as part of the sign. So
That is
that's
crazy.
probably that person. I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but
I'm not sure either, but yeah, the atmosphere had totally changed, not from our side. We were just like I said, almost just like so innocent, just lambs. They just slaughtered us. We weren't expecting it. We didn't understand that the war on drugs, how violent it was, how indiscriminate it was, how why made no it made absolutely no sense that they were attacking marijuana like this.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Now, I heard from different people that that was a very traumatic event to have gone through. From your perspective, was it traumatic? Was it
We
just
were
like just
mad.
some
We were just mad because the university told you, like we had that little normal group, right? The university said, well, Hash Wednesday's over. It's never coming back. And we were just like, oh, you're so wrong. You have no idea how wrong you are. We'll be back next year. And not only that, we're going to go to every single campus in Illinois next year. That's how mad you've made us. And we did. So we did events on all the state campuses and some of the private school campuses the next year.
wow. I did hear about that. I think like Carbondale and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that was the start of the hemp tours, and we ended up doing about 1,000 events, but all inspired by Hash Wednesday and the university telling us you'll never be back. We're just like, you're so wrong. You're so wrong. You have no idea how wrong you are. So, yeah. Oh, there you go. That's that. That's it. That is so funny.
Yeah, and see, it took me a while, folks that are watching. It took me a while to realize that he is standing on somebody's
He
shoulders.
is.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, I totally assumed he was on a ladder or something.
Yeah, I remember the lifeguard chair. So maybe this is even like maybe it happened a couple years, or maybe I'm misremembering. Who the heck
Yeah, I
knows?
can't remember which year this photo
Oh,
is from, to be honest.
because I remember the bong being like one of those big Swiss pipes or whatever that just like goes out forever, like a Rico lie thing.
Yeah,
That is so funny. I
that's
used to have, I had a 3, 6, and 9 foot bong back in those days. So I was all
holy
about
crap.
that.
Wow. I feel like something like that is hard to conceal.
Well, because we all had those the graphics bongs that came in, you could get your 3 foot bong and then you get your extensions that you get 2 3 foot extensions. So that's how you get your, yeah,
That's hilarious.
nine
That's
foot bong.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Um,
But those
so
guys got shut down by Operation Pipe Dream when the war on drugs went after all the suppliers. Like Tommy Chong went to prison, and yeah, those graphics people got hit super hard. Yeah.
it's crazy. I read that during that time, the Operation Pipe Dream, but there was also this idea of like horticulture stores. They were like asking people like for their inventory of like what they've sold to people to try to
Oh, yeah,
determine.
for sure. That was absolutely happening. I forget what that one was called. And there was Operation Dead End happening at the same time too, where they were targeting Grateful Dead, Grateful Dead followers and the Grateful Dead parking lot, the Grateful Dead scene.
Wow.
Yeah, Green Merchant, I think that's the one that hit the pot shops or the grow shops. Operation Green Merchant.
Yeah, and it really just does seem that, all these crowds that we're naming off, like you say, it was kind of during the anti-war movement. And um yeah, how do you criminalize that position? Well, let's criminalize something that they all use, you know.
Right? Yeah, of course, that was always the strategy, right from Nixon when he started the war on drugs. He was pretty, he got caught saying that, of course, on tape. We're just gonna target people using drugs. And yeah, yeah, you nailed it with that one
It's
for sure.
crazy.
But it was a big backfire because the thing is that this is what I always thought. How on earth would you try and tell us that cannabis is going to fry our brains like an egg when number one, we've all used it and we know that it's helpful and fun and mellow and kind and gentle and we feel better. And two, we're in university learning logic and how are you going to make you're going to force feed us something that's the most illogical thing we've ever heard right in our formative years? That's never going to work. It was an idiotic idea in the first place that you can out educate us with fake news. Basically, it just was the biggest backfire ever. So you just made us mad. So
Yeah, I always thought it was also kind of dangerous too, because I always worried like if the youth thought, well, they lied to me about this, what else are they lying to me about? Like that's either a really good thought, because healthy skepticism, all that,
yeah,
but it could be a scary thought too. Sometimes you want the youth to listen to the lessons of the, you know, former generations, I guess. So
absolutely makes sense to me too. So yeah, all drugs aren't created equally, although they should be treated equally under the law. You know what I mean? Personal choice and responsibility and safe drugs should all be available. But I don't know. It was a hot mess, and at the same time, for us, it was so bad what was happening to marijuana users. It was even worse that was happening to crack cocaine users or the Grateful Dead um, fans that were getting caught with liquid LSD and being charged for the volume of the water weight. Getting life sentences for 1,000 hits of LSD, but because it was in water, suddenly it's enough to get a life sentence. So yeah, even in the height of the war on drugs, the casual marijuana user, well, almost 1 million a year were being arrested by the feds. So that's not getting off easy. But it was even worse for people of color, people in highly impacted neighborhoods, the crack cocaine users, and yeah, everything that I've just mentioned. So to have 800, of course, 800,000 people got arrested because the police are cowards and they wanted to show that there's this huge problem in a war on drugs and we have to arrest people. They're going to arrest a million cannabis users because they're not afraid of us. They were never really out there getting the worst criminals. They were just trying to get their numbers so they could get their funding and, forfeit the cars and drive Camaros because they took them from a pot dealer, just craziness, absolute craziness.
yeah, and that's just it. Like to hear, of people that could have, gone to, oh, your dog's adorable, uh, prison for like, yeah, because of the water weight or whatever. And it's just like when you contrast that with like, look, I'm not saying our criminal justice system is perfect. Obviously needs a lot of work, but I'm just saying like on its face, just I know that there's a lot of nuance to this, but on its face, when you consider that we've been putting people in jail for non-violent offenses with people that have violent offenses. Look, I'm not saying that jail is I'm not saying that, people can't be rehabilitated, and I'm not saying that jail is a place for rehabilitation. It seems like very much the opposite. Like it doesn't seem like it helps people. But I'm just saying when you consider that on its face, that that's what we're doing, it seems so crazy, you know?
Makes no sense. It's just you got to follow the money then. Why are we doing it? It's because just like everything else, if you a few very wealthy, already wealthy people figured out a way to make money off the war on drugs, be it through the private prison system, be it through the urine testing industry, be it through, policing, uh, and just as usual, greed wins the day when it comes to a society built on capitalism. And people became numbers that became nothing but potential money into the prison system. Prison industry sprouted up, where prisoners are locked up virtually in indentured servitude, making products for almost nothing, making other people rich. It's just really gross. It's really bad.
Well said. Well said. Well, um, what kind of impact you've kind of touched on it in many different ways by saying, how these hash bashes or whatever you want to call them, how they've continued and how they did spread to other universities. But just in case we didn't cover all bases, I'm just curious what you think the impact that Hash Wednesday had on, again, not only the University of Illinois campus culture, but the broader community.
Well, I think it impacted everyone that attended. I mean, there was probably thousands and thousands of people over the dozen years that it was a full-blown smoke-in that attended, that experienced freedom in a way that maybe a lot of other people didn't get a chance to experience, and that still lives within us, and we know what we're working for again, right? Just the total freedom to be nice and kind and gentle and include cannabis in that lifestyle choice, and gathering together because we just wanted to get together, smoke cannabis, and be nice to each other. Why not? Why not? And that we can't do it right now, it still begs the question, why not? I was driving around my campus the other day, just getting in there to my parking spot, and I was thinking, how come there's not a little outdoor place that we can get together and smoke cannabis? That makes no sense whatsoever. Because what a nice way to get together and find your people, you have a commonality instantly if you share your love of cannabis because of a lot of different reasons, but just because cannabis makes you feel better and you're kind of like just vibing, it opens up your energy so that you're ready to accept new people, new experiences, and share yourself with people in a way you might not otherwise do. So why aren't we giving students who need to experience that very thing a chance to get together and bond over cannabis? Let's start Hash Wednesday again, Cole, like in a big way. Let's just show up and, see what happens. Let's ask for a permit, or, ask where we're going to go. I don't know how we do it, but there should be Hash Wednesday again on campus.
And that's actually one of my questions
Let's
that
do
I'd
it.
like to bring up. Maybe not on campus, just because I want to be respectful of the Smoke Free Illinois Act and maybe other students and such.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I've
Okay.
got ideas. You
I
know what I
get that.
mean?
I get
Um,
I get it. I'm sorry.
no, no, don't apologize.
Campus. There has got to be a place on a college campus that every campus could put
Absolutely.
a little spot in.
And let's not pretend that kids don't. I mean, look, kids smoke cigarettes. Like I've been on campus, so like I'm just saying in terms of yeah, I mean at the end of the day, I think fuck it, let's do it on the quad, but I'm trying to figure out,
Is cannabis included in that Illinois law that you just said? Because a lot of times cannabis not included in laws like that.
I think it is, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think it is. But
Not
my thought was, and we'll get to this, maybe doing
okay.
it at the Capitol, Springfield, because
Oh,
you, you know,
oh my
no,
God.
you don't like that idea?
For fun? Isn't the idea to have fun?
Well, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
There. Where's the Capitol? Let me picture it. I can't even picture the Capitol anymore. I can only picture the old Capitol building.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. The idea is for it to be fun. And like I say, we'll get back to that. But
Back to,
um
count me in,
did
whatever the
you
plan.
or what's that?
Count me in.
Hell
I'm in.
yeah.
Wherever we're getting together to smoke weed, I'll do it.
Hell yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I've asked I think each participant at this point now and they've all said yes, they'd be up for it. That I just need to let them know when and where. So it sounds like we might be having a good one. But you mentioned some people that you knew that faced legal consequences. Did you or any other people you know ever face legal consequences or just even like scary stories, those stories where you almost got caught related to your participation in Hash Wednesday or your just cannabis use in general?
Not a Hash Wednesday, no. No problems in Champaign Urbana at all. trying to think if we took any precautions to protect ourselves, but not really. But yeah, overall, heck yeah, every kind of problem with the police, from asset forfeiture to felony arrest to misdemeanor arrest to you name it, harassment of every kind, being threatened, having my friends arrested, having my friends threatened. Yeah, the feds took $100,000 from me once, um, and so on. Yes.
Whoa, $100,000 from you in college?
No, as a grown up.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
just like related to your cannabis activities.
Just got through the dispensary. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool. I want to ask you about that. We're just about done with Hash Wednesday in the University of Illinois. I just wanted to ask you, were there any other memorable or significant moments or incidents or happenings or just funny stories that happened in your experience at Hash Wednesday or just being a kid in college that you wanted to share?
Well, at Hash Wednesday, I can't think of anything, but I remember, in college, we would, there was this one summer where we got a house and we would throw cannabis parties every single week. And everyone would come, like maybe 25, 30, 40 people, maybe more. We'd all just get whatever kind of cannabis we could, and then we would host games. So we had the Bong Olympics. We would do everything. We'd do every crazy thing. So yeah, the stoners back then, we were having a really good time. We thought it was fun to get together to smoke cannabis, but we were being really creative, like we wanted to get together and like, let's do some crazy something to make it really fun. So we would just get together every weekend and do a cannabis game or party or something, but I always had something happening, like, yeah, often involving that 6 foot bong or 9 foot bong. For us, for our 9 foot bong, the person lighting the bong had to be on the first floor and the person smoking it had to be on the second floor. So that's how we got around that. So I was a bong Olympic champion in the 6 and the 9 foot bong back in college. So that's big news on a personal level, but as far as impactful for a greater crowd, I don't know.
Do you still have your medals?
I really wanted to. I have a box in my garage that's like high school and college. I got to open that thing up. That's going to be a time capsule. That's for sure.
That's funny. Well, so let me see if I had any other Hash Wednesday questions. This will open us up to talk about what happened, in your personal and I guess now academic life that you just, as you mentioned, you just graduated. Congrats again.
Thanks.
Um, can you share any insights into how Hash Wednesday may have influenced your personal or academic life during your time at UIUC and after?
Oh, absolutely. Because sorry, my dogs. Gonna
It's all
lock my
good.
dogs out again. Yes. When the cops busted Hash Wednesday, like I said, we were so upset and they're telling us we're never going to be back. And instead we told them we'd be back. We're going to every campus, but we don't want to do it alone. So we just started calling everyone we could think of. We like got a High Times magazine. We called High Times and we managed to hook up with Steve Hager, who was the editor of High Times. And the reason he cared, of course, like I told you, he grew up there. So he was like, the police busted Hash Wednesday. He was in. He was in. High Times was totally with us. And then we called Normal national office. We didn't know that Keith Strop had been a college student there. So they're the same thing. Hash Wednesdays busted, then suddenly Normal was involved. So we have already the two biggest names in the whole industry completely having our back because that's their hometown, How dare the police come and do that? Do you know the name Steve D'Angelo, who founded the Harborside Health Center? And he's kind of a big Steve D'Angelo's
Yeah.
longtime partner, and they're not together right now, but they were together forever. Her name was Ruby Pearl. Ruby grew up in Champaign, Urbana. So we reached out to Steve D'Angelo. He was a big time activist. And he was like, also, they were just outraged. So suddenly, as we were planning our response to the police, we had Normal, we had High Times, we had Steve D'Angelo and the Yippies. That meant the organizer of the Great Midwestern Marijuana Harvest Fest was like helping us figure out how to respond. And we had the organizer of the New York Marijuana March and the organizer of the DC. We went big time. We're like, no way are you crushing us. No way. So we found all the best of the best, and they all came behind us. So by the time the next year came around, and like I told you, we wanted to do that tour because we told them we're going to be, we just have our attitude. You're trying to crush. No, you're not crushing us. We're going to be everywhere. We put together a tour, and we had all those people on tour with us. So that's what happened next, is that we loaded up in a caravan and we went from campus to campus with all these really true experts in the issue. And we got news everywhere. We got activists organized, because on all the other campuses, the same thing was happening. The police were coming after the students. So we started to, it was really the start of something. We realized that how important that little tour was. And so the next season, which would have been fall, we did 5 states. So we did all the college campuses in the big cities in 5 states, and took a whole caravan of people and experts. And at that time we took LV Musica, who was getting 300 joints from the federal government for her glaucoma at the time. We took her, right? So we can't have any cannabis, but LV's got 300 joints from the feds, who are trying to say cannabis is going to rot your brain. So everywhere we'd go, we'd get LV on the news. Like this, she's like blind in her 50s, with her joints. And so the other people started to understand that the feds were just lying, absolutely lying. We did 17 states. We started doing 3 tours a year, 2 tours per season. So that would have been 5 tours a year. We just went off the hook, and we did those tours. Burned On by Hash Wednesday. We did six years, 3 seasons, 5 tours a year, because of Hash Wednesday and how upset we were. LB!
There's
I
LV.
know. Thank goodness LV was blind, because we put her in some perilous situation. Just get in the VW bus, LV. It's got like 3 3/4 of tires, but I think we can get from Boulder to Denver on it. So it was how we were rolling back then. But it made a huge difference. Jack Herrera joined the tour, and we were just everywhere. And we always called it planting seeds, because everywhere we went, there was somebody like us that wanted to organize. So everywhere we went, we left behind organizers who just took the ball and ran with it. And from that little attack on Hash Wednesday, and that's getting so obstinate, we created organizers and all across the US. I mean, hundreds of cities across the US in response. And we just hit the 100th monkey. People knew the truth was out. So I'd like to think that Hash Wednesday actually, that breaking point of Hash Wednesday 88 and our response in 89 really radically changed the trajectory of the war on drugs. And we became very proactive and on the offensive, and ultimately we won.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah,
Hell
we did.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we did. I was just pulling up this since you mentioned LV.
There you
This isn't
go.
this isn't LV's, but just in case folks wanted a visual on what
That's
is
it.
this what it looked like? What LV had? Did you ever see it?
Yeah, and if you open it up, there would be 300 joints tightly packed into that container. And yeah, we just, have LV there with the container kind of under her arms, of a woman, a senior, and 300 joints. And she would tell her story and show how the feds are actually trying to claim that it has no medical uses, but they're prescribing her 300 joints a month. Figure that logic out. So, we would just use what we learned in college, logic. Let's just talk about the logic of the war on drugs. And we'd simply show people, here's LV's joints, here's Jack Herrera with the hemp fiber, the hemp paper, the hemp fuel, the hemp, whatever products we could show off. And then we talk about mass incarceration and criminal justice, and the right to just have fun. I mean, come on. So, and we smoked weed everywhere. We didn't care. That was also part of it. Just like Hash Wednesday, we're just gonna smoke everywhere. And and what? That was,
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Well, tell us, about what happened for you, going past the rallies and everything else. I don't mean to skip to the Cannabis Action Network, but yeah, what happens after the rally? I'm calling them rallies, hash bashes. I don't even know what to protests,
the tours, we hemp tours, we call
tours.
them hemp tours. That was Cannabis Action Network. After that, we moved to Berkeley, California. We worked really hard to collect signatures on the statewide initiative in 1996. we had an office, Cannabis Action Network office. We decided to move ahead in Berkeley, California is where we decided to settle eventually. We after we passed the medical marijuana law, we decided in Berkeley to follow the local law, which had legalized adult use. So the state law legalized medical use, but Berkeley had legalized adult use. So we opened a adult dispensary at Cannabis Action Network office in 1997. Got busted. For that's where I got my felony, but we won our case because the police lied on the search warrant. They were so mad at us, and they couldn't figure out how to arrest us. I had the weirdest conversation ever with the police, Cole, because we're at our thing, and it was a political movement, really. You know, we're making a point. The city had legalized it, so we were just following the law. But the police, this sergeant came one day and he pulled me outside. He's like, Debbie, I have to tell you, our snitches are coming in and they're trying to sell you out. And we've decided not to take up the case, but they're telling the same thing to the DEA. So now we're worried about you guys. Oh my, this is the weirdest thing ever. But we just kept going. We did get busted. Anyway, since the cops were, there was just one cop, he was so mad. He lied on the search warrant. We fought the search warrant. We won. And we sued the police and we won. So that was my felony arrest. I
Well,
ended up buying a VW bus and a ticket to Amsterdam with my my lawsuit settlement, which seemed
fitting.
appropriate.
Yeah, fitting. That's awesome. What was it
Yeah.
like to get arrested? What was that pretty crazy?
Well, in Berkeley, it was mellow because it was a political movement and we did have thousands of members and we were making a point and we were careful about the whole structure of the whole thing. So they let me turn myself in eventually and I just stayed in jail for about 8 hours. They let me bring a book and that was that. It wasn't a traditional bust, you know, so
W-
it was like politicized arrest. So
What was a dispensary like in 1997?
for us, it was about gathering. So it was a gathering space. Selling cannabis was just kind of the political thing. So we did that to fund what we considered a movement. Everyone became a registered voter. Everyone signed petitions for legalization. And the idea was just like, let's get together, let's have music, let's do what people who use cannabis really want to do. Hang out, smoke cannabis together, listen to music, do a little politics on the side, have some coffee and tea. We'd make these really nice cannabis pizzas. They were so good. We had this little local bakery that would make the little pizza crust for us. And we would make cannabis infused pesto and then just put some cheese on and toast it. So we had some hemp fresh pesto, infused pesto hemp pizzas. That was great. And then when we got busted, what happened is that a medical marijuana patient came up to me. His name was Jim McClelland. He asked me if if I wanted to start a dispensary with him. So we started Berkeley Patients Group in 1999. So a couple years after the bust, we started Berkeley Patients Group with that same thing. What do you want to do? You want to get together and have a good time. This isn't, we're not Kaiser Health Center. You know what I mean? This is someplace that you come to. We actually had named our place the Euphorium, a place to be normal. So we wanted to help people understand that experiencing feelings of euphoria and happiness are perfectly normal and that we should have euphoriums, place where we get together to feel normal together. So yeah, Jim was dying of AIDS when we started Berkeley Patients Group. So he lived a year, but we tried to make the place like, what do you want to do with the last year of your life? And it was fun. We wanted to have fun. So people who were sick and dying in Berkeley had the best place to come to feel better. And we just programmed the heck out of it with really, really fun, good feelings every single day. So yeah, that's what came after those tours is open up the weed shops. So yeah.
That's super cool. That's super cool. Um, I'll have more questions. We'll return to it later because it ties into kind of what I'll be asking to cap off this episode. But yeah, what about specifically what a dispensary was like in 1997? Because to hear that, that's like crazy. Because today, at least in Illinois, it depends. I've been to multiple state markets, and it depends on the vibe of a dispensary. Um, you know what I mean? There are some dispensaries that are definitely set up to be like super chill. They've got nice music. They're not rushing you at all. But in most dispensaries in Illinois, at least, it's like very much feels like get in and get the fuck out. Like there's you can't even
Yeah.
smell it. You can't.
Oh,
And so to hear that like patients would get together and maybe even did you, well, I'll save those questions. To hear that people got together and it congregated, it wasn't just a place to
oh,
dispense
we smoked
cannabis
the
and
heck
get
out
out.
of weed, every kind of thing we could. We had bongs on every table. We had whatever we could imagine that would be our dream, because we were modeled on a Dutch coffee shop
Yeah.
where you could buy your coffee, you'd just be normal, you'd sit at your table, you'd roll up your joint, and you'd consume cannabis. So yeah, we modeled ourselves like that. So
So did
yeah,
you
we
guys
had
have like, did you
oh,
have purchase limits or sorry, what were you about to say?
oh no, I was just what I was going to say is our Dutch friends would come to visit and they'd be like, "You've made us proud." But
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, we had to have purchase limits because we didn't want people being dumb and getting us in trouble because they were coming and buying from us and selling on the streets and then maybe saying like, "Where'd you get your weed?" And then they're narking us out or something like that. So
Ah,
we had to have a purchase limit to make sure nobody was reselling.
I see. Gotcha. Very interesting. What was it? Do you remember?
I think an ounce. I can't really recall. Yeah, like 1 ounce, and it might have even been less. We didn't have full access to cannabis like now too. Sometimes we would run
I was
low.
about
We
to
had
ask that.
we
Yeah,
can
how
only
did
get an eighth today, because that's all we have. But
and back then there was no seed to sale. You just kind of got it from a farmer, right?
yeah, but Jim McClelland was a farmer himself, and he grew some of the best cannabis ever. So we really hung our hat on Jim. In fact, Jim wanted to start the dispensary with one thing in mind: have the best cannabis ever. So that was the number one thing. So yeah. So
Yeah,
Jim grew it, and we got it from other farmers.
very cool. And how did that business tell me about that business? So you started it. How did it go?
Oh, it went great. I was there 10 years and then I became a small business consultant in the industry, opened another dispensary, ran for about 5 years, and then I went back to college.
And then here we are.
Here we are. Yeah.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. So,
My last dispensary, cold too, was a performance cafe. We had a license for on-site consumption, and we had a dab bar, and we would do cannabis farmers markets with consumption allowed, and it was good times
that's cool. Was that in California too?
in
Very cool.
Oakland. Yeah.
Oakland. Gotcha. What do you remember about like before I get to the big topic that I basically already kind of asked you about? What was it like back then? But I've got a few more questions to add. I was just curious. I feel like we stepped away from Hash Wednesday, and how do you remember meeting like Josh and people like that I've connected with? I'm just curious.
Think me and Josh lived in the same dorm together, if I'm remembering correctly. We hooked up at the dorms.
Nice.
That's
That's cool.
where you kind of met your core group of friends, was through the dorms. And yeah, I can't remember though.
And they just
Yeah.
all happen to be cool.
Yes. Yes, they did. So
Good luck. That's good luck
yes.
right there. That's really
And
cool.
yeah, my early friends were all, I mean, there's a lot of physicists, right? And like everyone was smoking cannabis and talking trippy stuff about physics in the universe. So it was great. Smart, stoner smart. That's the vibe. Yep.
That's awesome. Um, yeah, so the kind of the way I've been ending all these conversations is something I talk about on my show all the time, which is kind of where I was asking why or what a dispensary was like in 1997. Um, it's interesting to me, like, so some of the things we've already talked about, like just smoking loud and proud in the quad, like as I mentioned, no longer allowed, unfortunately, just by the color of no
Just like
smoking,
a
right?
little spot on the edge of campus, like just way back. Do they still have the frisbee golf course? Can we just have a corner of the frisbee golf course?
Right, right, please.
That's just it. A tiny little corner over there on the edge.
Yeah, we'll be
That's
discreet
fine.
about it. We'll be
Yes,
respectful.
exactly.
And anyways, though, things like that. So that is actually pretty well universally a truth across the state of Illinois. You can't smoke anywhere in public. There are a few consumption lounges. I've visited them for this show. It's really cool. There's only a few downstate, and by a few I mean two.
Mhm.
Actually, there's now three downstate. But then there's like Only the point is, I don't know that there's more than 10 in the state of Illinois. And so we can start there. Consumption is not you can't smoke cannabis wherever you can smoke cigarettes, which really sucks. Um, the exception is consumption lounges, and I guess I would say the city of Chicago, the former mayor made it clear that CPD, Chicago Police Department, wouldn't enforce if you were smoking on your porch or your back deck, which that's cool, because then, but what do you think about things like that? Like I'm going to go down a list of different things I can think of, but there are still like I feel like things we need to accomplish. And that's why I bring up like a hash Wednesday, for example, because if we would be smoking in public by the color of the law, that would be illegal. And that's actually kind of
It
why I
always
want.
was. It always was, but even in every moment of Hash Wednesday was always illegal. Never was it once legal when we were doing it in the 70s and 80s.
And that's why I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to invite all these people that were in Hash Wednesday, we're not doing anything really any different. Except now the cannabis we might have purchased is quote unquote legal, just what we're
But
doing.
they don't have an event license in Illinois. They have that out here, special event license.
Some people have found ways to be like, well, it's a private property, and so the property owner says that they don't care if you consume, but it's not really written
Yeah,
out in the law,
we have
which
a
sometimes is better than being written out in the law, frankly, sometimes,
so we
you
we
know.
have a license here that like you can get retail, manufacturing, cultivation, or you can get an event license. And you can
Hmm.
get either a temporary event license, so you're just going to do one event, or you can get an annual event license, so you can do up to 12 events. So that's what we need in Illinois. Then we just go get one of those things, our annual event license, and we do Hash Wednesday somewhere.
Yeah, but like I say, it's almost like with event licensing, I've talked to a few companies that do events, and they're almost kind of like don't touch it because it is just easy right now. The way like yes, they have to find a property owner that approves of it and everything like that.
Right.
But
Okay.
as far as
Private.
so still to my point, like consuming in public, just anywhere, like I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure in California if you have a medical card, you can smoke weed anywhere you can smoke a cigarette. Am I wrong
Yes,
on that?
true.
And I know that I don't think you should have to have a medical card. I mean, it's better than nothing. But these are the kind of shortcomings that I feel like where it's like we still have room for
I think adult
progress.
users can smoke anywhere tobacco too. It's not just medical. I think
Oh,
it's any,
cool.
yeah,
Nice. Very
yeah,
nice.
I think so.
From your perspective, are there any other things like that where you feel like there's still work to be done?
Well, event licenses for sure. And then the real work to be done is just on the capital side, just the fact that all the licenses are so expensive and hard to manage, and therefore they just roll up to fewer and fewer ownership groups. And that's the real misery of the whole thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. What do you think about like it seems that in all of these states that if you don't have a license and you like sell cannabis or something, they still treat it as like a trafficking charge, which is like the
Oh,
exact same crime as
geez.
before.
I hadn't thought about that. In California, they changed the trafficking crimes too. So it's not
Oh, they
no longer,
did.
yeah. So they've lowered the um yeah, they've lowered the penalties for selling cannabis on the illegal market, but it's still a crime. So yeah. In Oakland, we decriminalized underground sales. So our local police can't even touch it.
Wow. And
Yeah.
what do you think about that model? Do you think that's the way to go?
It's a hot mess, but how else are you going to get away from mass incarceration? Because it's really hard to parse that out, right? They're just sending
Right.
people to jail. They shouldn't be sent into jail. So at some point, you just got to say, well, okay, complete amnesty, because we're messing up that whole thing of sending everyone, all the Black and Latino weed dealers on the underground go to jail. All the white people just get a slap on the wrist. So at some point, you just have to have a mass amnesty and say, well, since we're idiots and we're doing that, we can't do anything about it. We just got to let um, everyone equally has to have the right to sell illegally, which is way better than just targeting people based on race or the color of their skin. That is for darn sure. So there's hopefully I don't know what the fix might be for that. I really don't.
Yeah. I'm not sure either. I mean, I've talked to that scare you? Scared
Yes.
me a little bit. Um, I've talked to a few lawyers that have some ideas, and I'll float those in a second. But to your point, um, University of Illinois in Chicago, uh, James Swartz, PhD. He's a researcher at the Jane Addams College of Social Work at UIC, and he found. First of all, the Chicago Tribune had reported this a few years ago, which I guess inspired him to look into this. He found that arrests persist in Illinois, predominantly in areas without cannabis dispensaries. Coincidentally, these areas have historically shouldered the brunt of those enduring policies.
Well, there you go. And then when they give licenses, probably going to be to some out of state, already wealthy white entrepreneurs, and it's going to be a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, and to back to the point that I feel like should be considered is and this has been floated to me from like a defense attorney. He said that, there needs to be a different mechanism for enforcement other than the criminal law in cannabis. He said, for example, in like different businesses, you would get a business offense, not a criminal offense, a business offense that's like proportionate to the damage you may have caused to society. So in some cases, like let's say, just hypothetically, you were serving up liquor to some teens. Maybe you get hit with a $15,000 fine. I don't know. I just threw out a crazy number because it's like maybe you could argue if it was like a group of teens that was relative. I don't know. I just again threw out just a random number, but the damage you may have caused to society, right? Because you're being irresponsible with your liquor license. I don't know. Uh, what say you?
I think I support the other side of the solution. Get rid of the sin tax that's making it impossible for people to get the licenses, the high licensing fees and taxation
Yeah,
rate.
yeah.
Make licenses available to everybody, not just fewer and fewer people. Look, the real
Yes.
failure of my whole career, Cole, is that here we are, started as this beautiful peace movement, trying to end war, trying to show people how to live together in harmony, how cannabis is helpful and a helpful part of a healthy lifestyle. And in the end, cannabis gets co-opted by the already wealthy. American capitalism takes over, and people of color, long-standing cannabis entrepreneurs like myself, small cannabis farmers, small manufacturers, they're all just left out of the picture. And there's no way in. There's just no way back in at this point. So there's no fix. In my mind, there's no fix. That's why I just continue to be like, okay, yeah, there's an illicit market. No kidding. The pot shops are getting robbed all the time. No kidding. That is how it should be in a situation that got set up like this. It just is the way it is because of the way we did it. So it's idiocy, really. The licensing and regulatory scheme, it's absolute idiocy. So,
Well
I mean,
said.
people have
Yeah,
been
and that
selling cannabis 100 years illicitly. 100, we're all very comfortable continuing to do it.
right. Well, and that's kind of something that I like to bring up. Like a lot of these people want to talk about public safety and everything else, and they'll use that for a reason to they justify these systems, right? Well, public safety and all this stuff. And I'm just like, cannabis has been trafficked for years without major problems. That's always been the thing. Nobody dies
Yeah.
from cannabis. Willie Nelson said the only person he ever has seen got hurt by cannabis is when a bale of it fell on his buddy. But that's just a joke. Um, but yeah, it just seems like at the very least, so like we started with decriminalization, but I really like how you spun that, and it's something that I've been trying to get into more people's heads. Like we need to at the very least, first and foremost, have complete decriminalization, but at the very least, if like we need to have a fair and inclusive licensing system that enables everyone to participate and adhere to whatever regulations we have, rather than, and at least in Illinois, currently we have a limited licensing system, which is, I argue, tied to the ongoing criminalization of cannabis. If that's the main enforcement mechanism, it's like, what else am I supposed to say? You know?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not a good situation. So,
But to your point, I like how you spun that, where it's like the answer. of course, is decriminalization, but it's also giving everybody an opportunity to participate so they wouldn't be in a position to be breaking the law in the first place. Like I
Absolutely.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. And until then, expect pot businesses to be robbed, expect the underground economy to flourish, and you can feel your feelings, but that's just what the reality is.
yeah. Well, my last question, and I know this is a one to chew on, but it's like, where do we go from here? Help us, Debbie. You got us here. Can you please
Uh,
keep driving?
What'd Josh say? Okay, let's see. First of all, we're gonna do Hash Wednesday, so we got that under control.
Yep.
Where do we go from here?
Well, and that's the thing, actually, that just to I'll give you the space to answer that question, but I was going to say that that's the idea in bringing Hash Wednesday back is that it would get people's attention by we're smoking in public because again, on its face, that's illegal. But then while we've got their attention, we can say, hey, everybody should be able to grow cannabis, for example, because that's still not true.
Uh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
licensing, all that stuff. But again, I wanted to give that's kind of the idea of bringing Hash Wednesday because I feel like I didn't give you that answer yet, but to give you the space,
Well,
how do we
okay.
get out of this?
What do I think? How we get out of it? We have to go back to the reality of how cannabis works. We've created, like I said, I feel like my whole career has been a failure because it ended here with American capitalism in its worst, most vile form, taking over the cannabis industry and leaving everybody else as low-paid wage laborers. What a nightmare. It feels like such a huge failure. So we have to start there. This is never what was intended. This is not right. It's not sustainable. It's not going to work over the long run. And something has to change. But that's not where this is going at all. It's just rolling and rolling, rolling up into fewer and fewer owners, more few people getting rich. And, pretty soon there'll be a Elon Musk of cannabis and everybody else will be out. And it's not going to be good. So what do we have to do? We have to probably start talking more about the cannabis culture and the failures of legalization, and that what we were trying to do was create sociocultural shift where people smoked cannabis, and the nature of the plant is creative gentleness. We thought that the more people that would smoke weed, the more creative gentleness we would see out of people, and community building. Let's get back to that. Let's remember this. We didn't legalize it for the capitalistic, let's all make money. We legalized it because we wanted a better society, and we think cannabis is a part of creating a better society. So that's what I think, is that we have to focus now more on sociocultural and what we wanted and what we actually want. And to me, that's the nature of the cannabis plant, speaks to what we want. When you consume cannabis, that's what we want the world to feel like. Just a little better, a little sparklier, a little more gentle. Music is a little bit better. Your dog is a little softer. Everything is just a little bit better. And that's what cannabis is. Cannabis legalization should have made things a little bit better. And it did not at all. So, I mean, unless you can, okay, let me backtrack from my statement. Yes, less people are getting arrested and people got out of jail, but we did not create a kinder and more gentle nation out of cannabis. We created a greedy green rush that's only helping a few people. We created an illicit underground market that's just as strong as it ever was. And we're not hanging out in community. We're going into these cold, uncomfortable, weird weed shops and getting our stuff and scurrying back, not knowing where to get together to consume together. So the job is far from done. So, yep.
Well said. Well said. Um, and I can appreciate your backtrack because I've had to do the same thing. People will call me and be like, Cole, you act like we haven't accomplished anything. And it's like, yeah, but it's not good enough.
Yeah, people.
That's the
Exactly.
way I look at it. So yes, I will take what we can get, but our work remains far from over, as you said. And moving forward, folks, I hope that we place greater emphasis around some of the topics we talked about today. That was the whole reason I wanted to bring back Hash Wednesday, not only in conversation form, but hey, maybe in the future we'll bring it back
Let's have
in the form of
fun.
protest.
Let's have fun. Get together to have fun and feel better.
After all, the first sentence from our law that legalized cannabis. I've just got it pulled up right now. I just love this, and this is where we can close. It's in the interest of allowing law enforcement to focus on violent and property crime. The General Assembly finds and declares that the use of cannabis should be legal for persons 21 years age or older. So perhaps maybe it's time that we grant law enforcement the capacity to concentrate on those matters, you know?
Yes. Can we add the words and fun? That would be good. That would solve everything. Cannabis should be legal and fun. That would be fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Debbie, anything else before we close? I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I look forward to maybe even having you back on the show in the future if you'd be up for it.
Sure. Yeah, bring me and Josh together sometime if you can do it too. That'd be so fun.
That'd
We'll
be
do a
awesome.
reunion show. I don't have anything else. I think it was really fun, and I'm glad that you're talking to people about Hash Wednesday. Honestly, I really do think that that '88 bust was the formative. It was the foundation of when the modern cannabis movement kicked off. So, nana nana boo boo. We told you you couldn't stop us. Thank you for busting us so that we could legalize marijuana from that moment forward. Things went into high gear. All the puns intended. So, yeah,
Oh. Well, again, I had a great time with you today. I hope you had fun.
yeah.
And cool. Well, folks, I hope you found as much value in this conversation as I did. We'll see you on the next episode of the Cole Memo. Take care.
Awesome. Michael.